Good afternoon, and thank you to Andrew and PTFS Europe for the invitation to speak today. I've been working with library management systems for nearly 30 years, over 15 years at the King's Fund, and nearly 11 of those with Koha, which is obviously the focus of my talk this afternoon. The King's Fund is essentially a think tank, an independent charitable organisation working to improve health and care in England. We're located in Cavendish Square in central London. We can look across the square to the Royal College of Nursing. If you turn right onto the square, the next turning on the right is Harley Street, and a bit further along, the first left is Wimpole Street, home to the Royal Society of Medicine. Some of the Royal Colleges are within a pleasant walking distance. The library operates under a public library licence, and the catalogue contains around 136,000 bibliographic records relating to health and social care management and policy. Strengths of the collection are a complete set of King's Fund publications dating back to 1898 and grey literature. With diminishing footfall, we've seen become increasingly focused on a remote user base, and while the library remains shut since the first lockdown, we've moved to home working, including running our inquiry service fairly seamlessly. We're active in the Health Library community, filling formal roles and building informal links with several organisations. Among our products, we provide a popular twice-weekly health management and policy alert, and in normal times, and in a less formal atmosphere, we run a health and medical-themed book group and local walking tours. We consider ourselves to be a modern, forward-thinking library, but less than 15 years ago we were much more traditional. The impetus for change was the conversion of our old library space into a 200-seater auditorium. The library has moved to a much smaller physical space, necessitating 2/3 of our stock being moved to storage. We were told to focus on our external audience, to modernise services, and we were given income generation targets. This presented a prime opportunity to innovate, and we started trying out open source programs, things like a wiki, blogs, feed aggregators, and data visualizations. We hosted these locally at first, then on an external server as they proved successful, and we made a commitment to open source in principle and in practice as we looked to use open source software for core functions. The King's Fund was the first European CERSI customer in 1990, but by 2009, the year of Barack Obama's inauguration for topical context, we'd become somewhat disenchanted with the way the company, by then CERSI Dynex, had changed, and the direction product development was taking. We were relying by then on a creaking, near end-of-life workflow system. We'd heard of Koha, and out of interest installed and tried it out on a local machine, but didn't consider it seriously until PTFS Europe emerged as a viable support company. We invited them over for a chat in September 2009, and the whole company came along. That was just Jonathan, Nick and Ian in those days. From a library perspective, Koha fitted our commitment to open source, sense of innovation, and gave us freedom to develop away from proprietary control. With no comparable Koha libraries in the UK, rather than examples and case studies, we trusted our judgment and the knowledge of PTFS Europe. For our IT department, they knew Nick, Jonathan and Ian from the old CERSI days, and were delighted at the thought of shutting down the old Solaris servers in the machine room, with PTFS Europe taking on the hosting and support of the library system. For finance and senior management, reeling along with the rest of the country from the financial crisis of 2008, the idea of initial and incrementally larger year-on-year savings was very appealing. With that broad support from the organisation, we acted swiftly, and in December 2009, just as Rage Against the Machine made Christmas #1, we made the pioneering move to Koha. Everything went smoothly for a variety of reasons. PTFS Europe were experts in our existing system, so had no problem in extracting, cleaning and manipulating our data. Koha was just clear and easy. Training sessions finished early as everyone was quickly comfortable with the functionality. We were able to rationalise and simplify workflows and data structures as part of the process. And we had a talented and enthusiastic library staff who bought into Koha and the concept of open source more generally. The success of our move to Koha was recognised internally and externally. It raised our profile and gave us a sense of confidence that helped forge a new identity, independence and purpose for the library. We were very happy to contribute our time to the Koha community in satisfying the high level of interest from the very start from other libraries by hosting visits and giving talks to describe our overwhelmingly positive experience. The slide highlights just the health-related organisations that we've spoken to. There were many more. The success with Koha empowered us to increase our use of open source to meet core functionality needs. Over the years, we've utilised open source in a range of scenarios. Similarly to our Koha arrangement with PTFS Europe, Co-Sector at the University of London host and support our online archive of King's Fund publications, which uses a grassroots open source stack called Samvera, of which we currently use the front-end application Haiku. We were early adopters of that technology and enthusiastic members of the open source community. The functionality allows us to search a collection of nearly 2,000 King's Fund publications dating back to 1898. To limit the search using various facets, or by date range, and to view the full publication using the embedded universal viewer. We can also search within the document using IIIF search. The Library Inquiry Database allows us to store data from our inquiry service, building a searchable knowledge base of over 5,500 questions and answers, as well as recording a range of usage statistics. The code is all written in-house using the common open source LAMP development stack. The primary function is to record new inquiries with user details, details about the inquiry including relevant subjects, and the full text of the question and answer. These can all be searched by any combination of those categories and date range. And the interface allows the recording of basic statistics, including visitors to the library and any basic inquiries that we get. A range of statistics are displayed on the screen to brighten it up a bit, and the inquiry database continues to be developed in-house according to user requests and requirements. This has recently included improvements to the user interface, additional categories and subjects, and a script to anonymise data for GDPR purposes. We host our own version of the open source Metabase program to generate statistics and data visualizations, not just from Koha, but other sources such as our inquiry database and Google Analytics for OPAC and archive stats. We've looked to open source solutions and open standards in all aspects of our work, not just the large projects. This presentation, for example, was put together with a variety of open source tools as listed. Web slides actually provide the potential to create far more impressive slides than my rather ham-fisted design skills have illustrated here. To reflect those developments, we've devised a library technology strategy, which explains our use and choice of open source. It describes our ongoing work and commitment to choose the best solutions in a constantly changing environment. Current plans include hoping to move to Elasticsearch as the search engine for Koha, completing a process to upload Born Digital documents and additional content formats to our digital archive, and exploring the use of IIIF image annotations to create online displays or exhibitions. 2020 has been similar in some ways to the situation we experienced in 2009. A desperate economic situation causing great pressure on libraries and the need to innovate in response to unexpected challenges. Adopting Koha and open source more generally to help address those problems is now a much easier decision to make for a range of reasons. Open source is winning the argument. In virtually every technological context, open source is now an accepted, if not preferred, option. In 2009, anti-open source rhetoric known as fear, uncertainty and doubt, or FUD, was widespread and dangerous, the anti-Koha document promoted by Cersei Dynex being an example. By 2020, FUD is generally seen as anachronistic and even a source of some amusement. Even Microsoft, one of the bastions of proprietary opposition to open source in 2009, apparently now loves Linux, committing massive resources to make key elements of its own code open source, as well as supporting the open source community and individual projects. The open source development model, with developers around the world working collaboratively on a project, has gradually won all arguments around quality of code, security, and response to user requirements. Koha is a much more complete and documented product now, where we had to make tweaks to the source code in the early days to achieve customizations. There are often now easier options and simple system preferences, as Janet described at the recent KohaCon. There are more libraries to look at as models to visit physically or virtually and to speak to. Koha is now a truly global system, and everyone uses the same core version, translated into around 45 languages, and code has been shared. Not only functionality that individual libraries have sponsored or developed back into the main Koha system, but customizations and snippets. So you might, for example, find the SQL syntax for a report you need in the community shared reports library. The open source model has been proved to work financially, as it has delivered long-term cost savings for the client and sustainability for companies which host, support and develop open source. PTFS Europe has demonstrated this sustainability. The company now numbers, I believe, 17 staff, which allows specialisation of roles, and you can see the benefit of that in areas such as upgrades, which are now more regular, structured and smooth. They also have all those years of experience in supporting a range of library types and sizes, and managing conversions for all manner of existing systems. I just wanted to conclude by reflecting on the experience of the last 10 months in the context of Koha. As libraries across the world have faced unforeseen and unimagined financial and practical challenges, we've seen the benefits of Koha as a cost-effective, robust, flexible system, and also the value of the global Koha community to contribute support, enthusiasm, ideas and solutions to help meet those challenges. The strength of an open source project lies in its dedicated and enthusiastic community of developers and users, and I hope this event today will lead to closer future ties between Koha libraries in the health sector.